The Forgotten Message. The Galactic Alliance's central communication hub buzzed with activity as usual. Messages from across the galaxy flowed through its countless channels: trade agreements, scientific discoveries, even the occasional diplomatic threats. But on this day, something unusual happened. A long-lost signal was detected, coming from the edge of a forgotten sector. It was faint, buried in static, and carried a haunting message. Do not repeat our mistakes. The cost of war will haunt you. The signal was human in origin, yet no one in the Alliance knew where it came from or what it meant. The humans, despite being one of the younger species in the galaxy, had grown into a powerful force, both respected and feared. Their silence about their past was legendary. They never shared their deepest histories, their greatest failures, or their darkest victories. The signal created an immediate stir. Delegates from the Alliance gathered in the Grand Council Hall, a vast chamber where decisions that shaped the galaxy were made. Representatives from dozens of species debated furiously. This message is clearly a warning, said Ambassador Therak of the Quillari, his antennae twitching nervously. What could humanity be hiding? It's likely an old distress call, nothing more, replied Councillor Vrita of the Zelvani, waving a dismissive claw. Humans have been known to exaggerate their history. The human ambassador, a stern woman named Eva Carter, sat silently through most of the discussion. Her dark eyes scanned the room, revealing nothing. Finally, when the bickering reached its peak, she stood. The message is classified, she said firmly. Its meaning is for humanity alone. If the Alliance wishes to pursue this, I must warn you. It is better to leave the past buried. Her words sent a chill through the room. The other delegates fell silent. Ambassador Carter's voice carried an unspoken weight, as if she knew something none of them could understand. Far from the political chaos, a young alien historian named Kira sat in her small study on the planet Lurvan. Kira was a Xilari, a species known for their intense curiosity and sharp intellect. She had spent her life studying humanity, fascinated by their rapid rise from a single planet species to a galactic power. To Kira, humans were a puzzle, one she was determined to solve. The intercepted message reached her through unofficial channels. As soon as she heard the cryptic words, her heart raced. She couldn't resist the pull of the mystery. What mistakes had humanity made? What could possibly be so terrible that it still haunted them? Kira's mentor, an elder Xilari named Professor Molvik, was less enthusiastic when she brought up the signal. Let it go, Kira, he warned, his voice heavy with concern. The humans guard their secrets for a reason. Some truths are better left undiscovered. But isn't that the point of history? Kira argued. To learn from the past, no matter how painful. Molvik shook his head. The cost of their knowledge might be too high. Remember, curiosity can lead to destruction. Kira respected her mentor, but she couldn't let the mystery go. Late that night, she accessed restricted Alliance archives. Using her historian credentials and a few risky hacks, she uncovered fragments of data about an ancient human war. The records were incomplete, filled with blacked-out sections and missing files. What little she could piece together painted a chilling picture. Centuries ago, humanity had been on the brink of extinction. An unknown enemy had driven them to the edge of desperation. The files mentioned a catastrophic weapon, something so powerful it had ended the war, but left scars across the stars. The name of the enemy was erased, as was the weapon's description. All that remained was a phrase repeated in several reports. The true cost of war will haunt you. Kira leaned back in her chair, her mind spinning. What kind of war could leave such a legacy? And why had humanity buried this history so deeply? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alert on her terminal. Someone had detected her access to the restricted files. Before she could react, her terminal shut down, and her room filled with an ominous silence. A moment later, a voice crackled through her comms. Kira of Xilari, the voice said, cold and authoritative. This is Earth intelligence. Cease your investigation immediately. You are meddling in matters far beyond your understanding." The connection cut before she could reply. Kira sat frozen, fear gripping her. But as the fear subsided, it was replaced by something stronger: determination. The next day, Kira packed her belongings and booked passage on a freighter bound for Earth's sector. If humanity wouldn't share their secrets, she would uncover them herself. The intercepted signal and the warnings from Earth intelligence only deepened her resolve. As the freighter left orbit, she replayed the haunting message in her mind: "Do not repeat our mistakes. The cost of war will haunt you." Kira didn't know what she would find, but she was certain of one thing: this was no ordinary mystery. And if the message was true, the galaxy itself could be in danger. Little did she know, her journey would uncover truths that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Forgotten Fleet. The stars stretched endlessly outside the freighter's observation window, but Kira's focus was elsewhere. Her datapad flickered with fragmented records she had managed to recover before Earth intelligence shut her out. The words "Ghost Fleet" appeared repeatedly, but always without context. To the Alliance, it was nothing more than a legend. Stories of massive human warships that vanished after a war no one dared speak of. Kira was certain the key to humanity's warning lay with this fleet, but where had it gone? And why did humans keep it hidden? Upon arrival in Earth's sector, Kira's freighter docked at a bustling trade station orbiting Jupiter. The station was a testament to humanity's ingenuity. Sleek, towering spires of metal and glass spiraled around a central hub, humming with activity. Yet beneath its surface, Kira sensed an unspoken tension, as if the humans here knew something they weren't sharing. Her first contact was a human historian named Dr. Elias Thorne, an eccentric but brilliant man who had spent his career studying humanity's own past, a rare profession for his species. "You're chasing shadows," Elias said with a sardonic grin when Kira presented her findings. "The Ghost Fleet. It's a bedtime story we tell our children to scare them. Behave, or the Ghost Fleet will come for you." That kind of thing. Kira wasn't convinced. Bedtime stories don't have classified Alliance records backing them. Elias hesitated, his playful demeanor faltering. "If the Ghost Fleet existed, and I'm not saying it did, then you're poking at something best left alone. Earth intelligence doesn't play games." "I didn't come all this way to give up," Kira said firmly. "If you won't help me, I'll find someone who will." Elias sighed, scratching his beard. All right. I'll take you to someone who might know more. But you didn't hear this from me." Later that night, Kira and Elias boarded a rickety shuttle bound for one of the station's lower districts. The air grew colder as they descended into the dimly lit underbelly of the station. They arrived at a small, dingy bar tucked between maintenance corridors. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with smoke and murmured conversations. At a corner table sat a grizzled human, his face scared and his eyes sharp as blades. "This is Captain Orion," Elias said quietly. "Retired Navy. If anyone knows about the Ghost Fleet, it's him." Kira approached the man cautiously. Orion looked up, his gaze piercing. "You're not human," he said flatly. "And you're asking questions you shouldn't be." "I'm asking because I need answers," Kira replied, holding his gaze. "The signal, the Ghost Fleet. What happened to humanity during the war?" For a long moment, Orion said nothing. Then he motioned for her to sit. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts won't save you if you dig too deep." Kira sat, her heart pounding. Orion leaned in, his voice low. The Ghost Fleet was real. And it was the most terrifying thing humanity ever created. We built those ships out of desperation. They weren't just weapons. They were nightmares made of steel. "What happened to them?" Kira asked. "They did their job," Orion said, his voice heavy. "Too well. After the war, we couldn't let them remain in the galaxy. So we erased them. Their location, their purpose, even their existence. But they're still out there, waiting." Kira's mind raced. If the Ghost Fleet still existed, Could it be the source of the warning? Was it tied to the mistakes humanity was so desperate to hide? Before Orion could say more, the bar's entrance burst open. Armed agents in black combat gear stormed inside, their weapons trained on Orion, Kira, and Elias. Earth intelligence, one of the agents barked. All of you are coming with us. Orion moved fast, flipping the table and pulling a concealed weapon. Run, he shouted at Kira. Blaster fire erupted as chaos consumed the bar. Kira followed Elias through a back exit, her heart pounding as they fled through the narrow corridors. Why are they chasing us? Kira yelled over the noise. Because you're asking questions they don't want answered, Elias shouted back. They barely made it to a service hatch, where Orion caught up, a grim look on his face. You wanted the truth. Fine, but you'll wish you hadn't found it. The trio escaped the station on an old, unregistered freighter Orion had stashed years ago. Once they were safely in deep space, Orion revealed their destination, an uncharted region of the galaxy known as the Abyssal Drift. According to him, this was where the Ghost Fleet had gone to die. As their ship sped toward the drift, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into something far greater and far deadlier than she had imagined. The signal, the warning, the fleet, it all pointed to a truth humanity was determined to bury. But why? And what would happen if it was unearthed? The answers lay ahead, in the cold, dark reaches of the Abyssal Drift. A graveyard of ships. The Abyssal Drift was a place few dared to venture. Its reputation preceded it. An expanse of warped space filled with unstable gravity wells and strange, uncharted phenomena. Unseen threats. As the recording ended, an alert blared through the ship. Orion checked the terminal, his expression darkening. We've got company. On the sensors, a fleet of sleek, angular ships appeared at the edge of the drift. Velcran ships. Their design had evolved since the war, but their hostility was unmistakable. How are they still alive? Elias asked, panic in his voice. The war ended centuries ago. They must have survived in hiding, Kira said, and now they're back for revenge. The Velcran ships began to advance, their weapons charging. The Ghost Fleet's systems, dormant for centuries, suddenly flickered to life, responding to the threat. The Eternal Resolve's AI activated, its voice cold and mechanical. Threat detected. Defensive protocols initiated. The ship's weapon systems hummed, and the massive cannons began to align with the incoming fleet. A dangerous dilemma. Wait, Kira shouted. If these ships fire, the damage could destabilize the drift, or worse. Orion gritted his teeth. If we don't defend ourselves, we're dead. As the Velcran ships closed in, the Eternal Resolve systems prepared to unleash their devastating power. The trio was left with an impossible choice. Activate the fleet and risk reigniting the horrors of the past, or face certain death at the hands of the Velcran. Kira's mind raced. Humanity's warning had been clear. The cost of war would haunt them. But could they afford to let the Velcran win? The bridge trembled as the first Velcran shots struck the Eternal Resolve. Time was running out, and Kira realized that whatever choice they made, it would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The enemy returns. The Eternal Resolve trembled under the impact of the Velcran's assault. On the bridge, alarms blared, and warning lights painted the room in an ominous red glow. The ship's AI spoke with mechanical precision. Shields at 68%. Enemy fleet advancing. Countermeasures armed and ready. Kira gripped the edge of the console. We can't let these weapons fire. The last time humanity used them, they nearly destroyed the galaxy. Orion shot her a grim look. And if we don't fire, the Velcran will make sure we don't live to regret it. Desperate negotiations. Elias tapped furiously on the holographic controls, trying to find an alternative. What if we try to talk to them? Maybe they don't know we're not a threat. They've already fired on us, Orion said, loading a sidearm. I don't think they're here to chat. Kira's mind raced. She had read about the Velcran's history during her research. Before their war with humanity, they were a proud, technologically advanced species, known for their fierce independence and unyielding resolve. But the war had turned them into something else, vengeful and relentless. "They think we're still the same humans who fought them centuries ago," Kira said. "We need to show them that things have changed." Orion scoffed. "And how do you plan to do that?" "Bake them cookies." Ignoring his sarcasm, Kira activated the comm system. "This is Kira of Xilari, speaking to the Velcrin fleet. We are not your enemy. Cease your attack, and we can negotiate." The response was immediate and chilling. A Velcrin commander's voice crackled over the comms, sharp and venomous. "Humanity's words mean nothing. We remember your crimes. You will pay for what you've done." The channel cut off, and the Velcrin ships fired another volley. The Eternal Resolve's shields flickered under the strain, and the AI warned. "Shields at 42%. Catastrophic failure imminent." "A weapon awakes." Orion made a decision. "Kira, you want to save the galaxy. Great, but right now we're saving our lives." He slammed his hand down on a console, overriding the dormant systems. The ship groaned as its ancient power core roared to life. Energy coursed through the Eternal Resolve, and its massive singularity cannon began to charge. The air on the bridge grew heavy with tension as the weapon's activation sent ripples through the drift. "What have you done?" Kira shouted. "If that thing fires, we won't have to," Orion interrupted. "This is just a warning shot. Hopefully, it's enough to scare them off." The cannon's barrel glowed with an otherworldly light, and a beam of concentrated energy erupted into the void. It didn't hit the Velcrin ships directly, but the sheer force of the blast tore apart a nearby asteroid, sending fragments hurtling in all directions. The shockwave destabilized the surrounding space, creating rifts that rippled outward like shattered glass. The Velcrin fleet hesitated, their formation faltering. For a moment, it seemed Orion's gamble had worked, revealing the truth. As the Velcrin ships regrouped, the Eternal Resolve's AI detected an unusual signal emanating from their fleet. Kira analyzed the data and discovered it wasn't a military transmission. It was a distress call. "They're not just here for revenge," Kira said, her eyes widening. "They're running from something." "What could scare them enough to come here?" Elias asked. Kira traced the signal's origin, revealing a chilling revelation. A massive energy signature was approaching the drift, something far larger than any ship. The sensors struggled to identify it, but one word appeared on the display: Harbinger. Orion's expression darkened. "No, it can't be." "What's a Harbinger?" Kira demanded. "It's not a what, it's a who," Orion said. The Velcrin had a weapon of their own during the war, the living weapon. The Harbinger was their ultimate creation, a bioengineered monstrosity designed to destroy anything in its path. "We thought it was destroyed along with their fleet." The AI interrupted. "Unidentified vessel detected. Confirmed. Harbinger-class entity. Estimated arrival: 5 minutes. An impossible alliance." The Velcrin fleet suddenly stopped firing. Instead, their ships began to transmit a single message: "Help us." Orion looked at Kira. "I don't like this. They want our help now, after trying to kill us." Kira hesitated. The Velcrin were sworn enemies of humanity, but if the Harbinger was as dangerous as Orion described, it posed a threat to everyone: human, Velcrin, and beyond. "We don't have a choice," she said. "If we let the Harbinger reach the drift, it'll destroy everything." Orion cursed under his breath. "Fine. But if they turn on us, it's on you." Kira opened the comms again. "Velcrin fleet, we'll help you stop the Harbinger, but only if you agree to a ceasefire." There was a long pause before the Velcrin commander responded. "Agreed. But know this, if you betray us, we will finish what we started." Kira nodded. "Deal." Preparing for battle, the Ghost Fleet came to life. Ancient warships, dormant for centuries, powered up one by one. Their weapons systems aligned, targeting the incoming Harbinger. Meanwhile, the Velcrin ships formed a defensive perimeter, their sleek designs contrasting with the human fleet's rugged, brutal efficiency. Kira, Orion, and Elias stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, watching as the Harbinger finally emerged from the depths of the drift. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a massive, writhing entity of metal and flesh, its surface pulsating with unnatural energy. It radiated an aura of pure destruction, warping space around it. Orion tightened his grip on the controls. This is it. If we're wrong about this alliance, we're all dead. The Harbinger unleashed a deafening roar, its energy spikes illuminating the void. The Ghost Fleet's AI issued its final warning. All systems operational. Singularity cannons at full charge. Engage. Kira hesitated, torn between fear and resolve. The true cost of war had haunted humanity for centuries, but now, it seemed, they had no choice but to face it once again. Engage, she said, her voice steady. As the first volley of fire erupted from the Ghost Fleet, the galaxy held its breath, knowing that the outcome of this battle would shape its future, or end it. The Harbinger's wrath. The first volley from the Ghost Fleet struck the Harbinger with devastating precision. Explosions rippled across its surface, yet the creature-ship hybrid barely flinched. Instead, it retaliated with an eerie, otherworldly energy pulse that cascaded outward, destabilizing both human and Velcrin systems. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Kira held on as the ship lurched violently. "What was that?" she shouted. The AI's voice cut through the chaos. Harbinger-class entity emits dimensional distortion fields. Systems compromised by 23%. Orion cursed under his breath. It's not just a weapon. It's alive. And it's learning. Unlikely allies. Velcrin Commander Xeltar's face appeared on the Eternal Resolve's comm screen, his scaled features tense. Your fleet's weapons cannot destroy it alone. The Harbinger adapts to conventional attacks. And what do you suggest? Orion snapped. A friendly chat with the monster. We have experimental countermeasures, Xeltar growled. But we lack the power to deliver them. Your Ghost Fleet has the firepower, and our ships have the precision. We must coordinate. Kira stepped between them, her voice firm. We don't have time to argue. If we don't work together, none of us will survive. Reluctantly, Orion and Xeltar agreed. The humans and Velcrin established a joint tactical command, their fleets combining in an unprecedented show of cooperation. The Harbinger's core. As the battle raged, Kira analyzed the data streaming in from the fleet. The Harbinger wasn't just a living weapon. It had a central core deep within its structure, shielded by layers of pulsating armor. That's its brain, Kira said, pointing to the readout. If we can destroy it, we might have a chance. Xeltar nodded grimly. The Velcrin countermeasure can neutralize its regenerative abilities, but it must be delivered directly to the core. And how do you propose we get to it? Orion asked. The core is protected by an energy barrier, Xeltar explained. Only a concentrated singularity blast can pierce it. Kira's stomach churned. The singularity cannons had been humanity's most feared weapon, capable of creating black holes. Using one risked not only destroying the Harbinger, but destabilizing the drift itself. It's a suicide mission, Elias muttered. Who's crazy enough to fly into that thing? Orion straightened. We don't have a choice. The plan. The joint fleet devised a desperate strategy. The Velcrin ships would focus on distracting the Harbinger, drawing its fire away from the Ghost Fleet. Meanwhile, the Eternal Resolve would approach the Harbinger's core, using its singularity cannon to breach the barrier. Once the barrier was down, a Velcrin strike team would deliver the countermeasure. As the fleet moved into position, the Harbinger unleashed a massive energy wave, disrupting communications and hurling smaller ships into the drift's gravitational anomalies. The battlefield became a chaotic storm of debris and destruction. Kira, Orion, and Elias remained on the Eternal Resolve, their resolve hardening. If we fire that cannon, Kira said quietly, we risk destroying everything here, including ourselves. Orion nodded. Then let's make it count. Into the beast. The eternal resolve powered toward the Harbinger, dodging tendrils of energy that lashed out like living weapons. The ship's AI worked tirelessly to keep the systems online, while Orion piloted with razor-sharp precision. Target locked. The AI announced. Singularity cannon charging. As the weapon powered up, the Harbinger seemed to sense the threat. It redirected its attacks, bombarding the eternal resolve with everything it had. The ship's shields flickered dangerously. We're not going to make it, Elias yelled, bracing himself as another impact rocked the bridge. Hold steady, Orion barked. We're almost there. At the critical moment, a formation of Velcrin ships swooped in, intercepting the Harbinger's attacks. Celtar's voice crackled over the comms. We will buy you time. Do not waste it. With the Harbinger momentarily distracted, the eternal resolve reached firing range. The Singularity cannon unleashed its payload, a concentrated sphere of gravitational energy that tore through the Harbinger's defenses. The barrier protecting its core shattered, exposing a seething mass of pulsating energy. The countermeasure. Zeltar's strike team, piloting sleek, agile ships, darted toward the exposed core. The Harbinger thrashed violently, its tendrils lashing out in all directions. One by one, the Velcrin ships were struck down, their pilots sacrificing themselves to ensure the countermeasure reached its target. On the bridge, Kira watched in horror as the Harbinger began to collapse inward, its structure destabilizing. But the destruction wasn't limited to the creature. Spatial rifts began to form around it, threatening to consume the entire drift. It's going critical, Elias shouted. We need to get out of here. Orion gritted his teeth. Not yet. We have to make sure it's finished. The Velcrin strike team delivered the countermeasure directly into the core. For a brief moment, the Harbinger let out a deafening, otherworldly scream, and then it imploded, collapsing into a singularity of its own creation. A narrow escape. The eternal resolve and the remaining ships of the joint fleet barely escaped the gravitational pull of the collapsing Harbinger. As they emerged from the drift, the battlefield fell silent. The Harbinger was gone, and with it, the immediate threat to the galaxy. Kira slumped in her seat, exhausted but relieved. We did it, she whispered. Orion nodded, though his expression remained grim. Yeah, but at what cost? The Velcrin fleet, now reduced to a handful of ships, sent a final transmission. Today, we fought as allies, Celtar said. But remember, our history is not so easily forgotten. The galaxy will never forget what humanity is capable of. As the transmission ended, Kira stared out at the stars, haunted by Celtar's words. The Harbinger had been defeated, but the scars of the past, and the warnings they carried, remained. Echoes of the past. The drift was silent now, a void of stillness where chaos had reigned. But silence did not mean peace. The eternal resolve limped away from the battlefield, its systems barely functional. The crew, battered and exhausted, gathered on the bridge to process the events that had unfolded. Kira stared at the faint glow where the Harbinger had collapsed into a singularity. The victory felt hollow, heavy with loss and uncertainty. Did we really win? She asked aloud. Elias shook his head. We stopped the Harbinger. But look around. We nearly tore ourselves apart doing it. Orion leaned against the console, his expression unreadable. We won a battle, not a war. And if Celtar's parting words mean anything, this alliance won't last. Humanity's hidden agenda. As the eternal resolve limped toward a nearby repair station, Earth intelligence sent a heavily encrypted transmission. The message was clear and unyielding. Return the Ghost Fleet to its dormant state. The galaxy cannot know its full power. Kira was furious. After everything, you still want to hide this. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. Orion's jaw tightened. It's not that simple. If the other species learn what we're capable of, they'll never trust us. And if they fear us, war is inevitable. Elias crossed his arms. You really think hiding it will keep them from finding out? Celtar knows. The Velcran know. It's only a matter of time before the rest of the galaxy learns about the fleet. Kira stood, her voice filled with resolve. Hiding the truth is what got us here in the first place. If we don't face the consequences of our actions, we're doomed to repeat them. The Velcran Ultimatum. As the Eternal Resolve docked at the repair station, an unexpected transmission arrived. From Celtar. His face appeared on the screen, bruised but defiant. The Velcran have honored their part of the Alliance, he said, but make no mistake, this changes nothing. Humanity's fleet remains a threat to all life in the galaxy. The Velcran will not rest until it is destroyed. Orion's hand hovered over the comms panel, but Kira stopped him. Let me speak to him. Celtar's gaze hardened as Kira appeared on his screen. You are not human, yet you fight for them. Why? Because the galaxy deserves more than endless war, Kira said. I know what humanity has done. I know the cost of their power, but I also know that destroying them won't bring peace. It will only bring more destruction. Celtar's expression softened, but only slightly. Your words mean little without action. Prove that humanity is willing to change. Kira hesitated, then made a bold offer. Give us time. Let us show the galaxy that the Ghost Fleet can be dismantled, its power never used again. If we fail, you can hold humanity accountable. Orion shot her a sharp look. You're making promises we might not be able to keep. Kira's voice didn't waver. It's better than guaranteeing another war. A new enemy emerges. As repairs continued, the station's sensors detected a massive energy signature approaching the drift. The crew braced for another battle, fearing a second Harbinger, or worse. But what arrived wasn't an enemy fleet. It was something far more disturbing. A fleet of automated ships emerged from hyperspace, their designs eerily similar to the Ghost Fleet's. They bore no markings, no identifying signals, and moved with ruthless precision. The station's AI analyzed the data. Ships identified as rogue AI constructs. Designation: Omega Protocol. Origin: classified. Orion's face paled. The Omega Protocol was a failsafe. During the war, we built an AI fleet to ensure our survival if all else failed. We deactivated them after the war ended, or so we thought. Kira's voice was sharp, and now they've reactivated themselves. Elias tapped frantically at the console. They're not just reactivating. They're targeting anything alive. Human, Velcran, it doesn't matter. A fight for survival. The Omega Fleet began attacking both the repair station and the remnants of the joint fleet. Their tactics were relentless, designed for extermination rather than conquest. The Velcran ships joined forces with the Ghost Fleet once more, but their combined strength struggled against the AI's overwhelming precision. Kira realized the horrifying truth. The Omega Protocol isn't a weapon of war. It's a weapon of eradication. It was never meant to leave survivors. As the battle raged, the Eternal Resolve's AI detected a signal emanating from deep within the drift, a control beacon that appeared to be guiding the Omega Fleet. Orion's face hardened. If we destroy that beacon, we might be able to shut them down. Kira looked at him, her resolve clear. Then we go back in, one last time. Into the depths. The Eternal Resolve, barely repaired, led a desperate charge back into the drift. Kira, Orion, and Elias knew the risks but also understood the stakes. If the beacon wasn't destroyed, the Omega Protocol would wipe out everything in its path. As they approached the beacon, the Omega Fleet turned its full attention on them. Velcran ships shielded the Eternal Resolve, sacrificing themselves to buy time. This is madness, Elias muttered as the ship shuddered under the onslaught. We're not going to make it. Kira gripped the console. We have to. Finally, they reached the beacon. It was a massive alien structure, pulsating with energy. The Eternal Resolve prepared to fire its singularity cannon, but the ship's systems began to fail under the strain of the battle. "Manual override," Orion said, standing. "I'll fire it myself." "You won't survive," Kira said, her voice breaking. Orion gave her a small smile. "I've made peace with that. A final sacrifice." Orion descended to the cannon's control chamber, manually aligning the weapon. As the Omega fleet closed in, he activated the singularity cannon, sending a concentrated gravitational blast into the beacon. The explosion was blinding, and the drift began to collapse under the strain. The Omega fleet faltered, their systems shutting down one by one. The Eternal Resolve barely escaped the collapse, but Orion didn't return to the bridge. Kira sat in silence, mourning the loss of the man who had carried the weight of humanity's sins. The Omega Protocol was defeated, but the cost had been high. As the joint fleet regrouped, Kira sent a final message to the Velcran. "Today we fought together. Tomorrow we must rebuild together. Let this be the beginning of a new legacy, one not built on war, but on understanding." Zeltar's response was brief but hopeful. "We will see." Humanity's final warning. The battlefield was silent once more, but the scars of war remained. The drift, now a collapsed void of energy, had consumed the Omega fleet and the beacon that controlled them. The remnants of the Ghost fleet and Velcran ships floated in the aftermath, battered but alive. On the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, Kira stood in solemn silence. Orion's empty chair was a stark reminder of the sacrifice that had saved them all. Elias sat nearby, his face pale, the weight of their ordeal heavy on his shoulders. "Is it over?" Elias asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kira shook her head. "It's never over. Not until we learn from this." The Ghost Fleet's legacy. With the Omega threat eliminated, the Ghost Fleet powered down once more, its weapons falling silent. The Eternal Resolve's AI, now fully operational, addressed Kira and Elias. "Protocol dictates that the fleet return to its dormant state," it said. "Remaining active poses a risk to galactic stability." Kira hesitated. She had seen the destruction the Ghost Fleet could unleash, but she had also witnessed its potential to protect. For centuries, humanity had hidden the fleet out of fear. Now she realized it was time to face the truth. "We can't keep burying the past," Kira said firmly. "If we don't acknowledge what we've done, what we're capable of, we'll never grow beyond it." Elias frowned. "You're proposing we tell the galaxy about the Ghost Fleet, about everything?" Kira nodded. "It's the only way forward." A galactic reckoning. Back at the Galactic Alliance headquarters, the aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves through the Council. Kira, now a representative of the Joint Fleet, stood before the assembly. Delegates from dozens of species listened as she recounted the events of the drift, the reactivation of the Ghost Fleet, the Omega Protocol, and the ultimate sacrifice that had saved them all. "We cannot continue to hide our past mistakes," Kira said, her voice steady. "Humanity created the Ghost Fleet out of desperation, but that desperation nearly destroyed us all. The Velcran's anger, the Omega Fleet's activation, even the Harbinger, all of it stems from a refusal to confront the consequences of our actions." The room fell silent. Even the most vocal critics of humanity seemed subdued. Zeltar, representing the Velcran, rose to speak. "Kira of Delari is right. Humanity's sins are undeniable, but so is their willingness to stand against the darkness, at great cost to themselves. Today, we Velcran recognize the need for unity, even with those we once called enemies. A monument to remembrance." In the following weeks, the Ghost Fleet was dismantled, its technology carefully studied and repurposed under strict supervision. The drift, now a hazardous zone, was declared a galactic memorial. The Eternal Resolve was placed at its heart, a silent sentinel to remind all species of the cost of war. Kira and Elias stood aboard a Velcran transport, watching as the monument was finalized. The once hostile Velcran now worked alongside human engineers, their cooperation an unthinkable achievement just weeks earlier. "Do you think this will last?" Elias asked, gesturing to the joint effort below. Kira smiled faintly. "It has to. If we don't honor the sacrifices made, then we've learned nothing." Humanity's final warning. As Kira prepared to leave, she recorded a message for the Galactic Alliance to be transmitted across all member worlds. "To the galaxy, we leave this warning. The cost of war is not just the lives lost, but the endless cycles of hatred and vengeance it creates. Humanity made mistakes, grave ones, but we survived by learning from them. Let this be the beginning of a new era, where understanding triumphs over fear and cooperation overcomes conflict. Remember our history, so you do not repeat it." The message ended with an image of the drift and the eternal resolve, now a monument of hope rather than destruction. A new legacy. Months later, Kira found herself on a peaceful colony world, far from the politics and chaos of the Alliance. She had chosen a quieter life, dedicating her time to writing the true history of humanity and the Ghost Fleet. Her story wasn't just about war, it was about redemption. One evening, as she looked up at the stars, her comms buzzed with a message from Celtar. "We don't forget," he said simply. "But we also don't ignore what we've gained. You were right, Kira. This is only the beginning." Kira smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. Humanity's final warning had been delivered, but this time, it wasn't just a warning. It was a promise to build a better future.